Greetings and welcome to the Southside Help Center Show. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. And if you have any questions about anything we're going to be talking about, please give us a call here at the station. This is a live call-in show. Our number here is 312-738-1060. We have Miss Shauna G over there on the phones. Please do put it to work. If you have any questions about the programs we're going to talk about, please give us a call here at the station. Again, this is a live call-in show, 738-1060. Today, we're going to be talking about some of our prevention programs. And one of the things we continuously talk about at the Southside Help Center is prevention, prevention, prevention. We always talk about intervention, which is once a problem exists, and how do we begin to stem those problems, or how do we begin to make changes. Prevention always happens before the problem actually begins, and that's why Ms. Simmons is here today. But before we get into that, we want to talk a little bit about the center. Southside Help Center has been in existence for about 25 years. Mrs. Betty Smith, who was our founder, founded the agency back in 1987 when she found a need for African Americans in HIV prevention, just to make sure that we had enough information so that we could stop becoming part of the problem, become part of the solution, because HIV has definitely affected us in a completely adverse way. So it's very important that we get the necessary information and share the necessary information. And although it's been more than 20 years, people are still giving the wrong information. People are still getting infected. So it's important that we continue to talk about HIV, that we continue to shine the light on HIV and how it's affecting us. Ms. Vanessa Smith is our executive director, continues that process. So we'd like to thank Betty and Vanessa for starting and continuing the Southside Help Center, who has been around for about 25 years. This is week 12 of our 13-week cycle. So we'd like to thank everybody. Next week we will be doing a wrap-up just to talk about all of the different programs that we've been able to talk about over the last 13 weeks. So please do tune in next week. If you have any questions about the programs, give us a call. We'll do our best to answer those questions. But now, let me talk about my guest. I have Ms. Tunda Simmons here, and when we talk about prevention, I say this all the time. Prevention happens before the problem exists, and that's why we have Ms. Simmons here. She is not only a prevention specialist, but she does a lot of other things that are definitely going to benefit us as a whole when we start talking about community, when we start talking about our young women and what they need to see in terms of professionals. So we really would like to thank her for being here. And again, we're going to talk about our school-based initiative. One of the things we talk about a lot is how we don't have enough services in the school, and how early do you begin that process in terms of school-based initiatives. So the first thing we're going to do is we want Ms. Simmons to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Ms. Simmons. I work for Southside Help Center, of course, and I'm the prevention specialist.
Absolutely. So now we want you to tell us a little bit about the school-based prevention program, and what does that exactly mean?
Okay. Well, with the prevention program, we like to target and we aim at building healthy relationships, self-esteem, as well as communication skills. And we feel that if we can build on these three components, then the likelihood of us preventing your violence, your early sexual behavior, and your early sexual behavior, and drug abuse is very high.
Yeah, and when she's talking about healthy relationships, this is one of the biggest things that we miss when we start talking about healthy relationships. When we say relationships, we always think man and woman, boy and girl. Relationships are far more than that. And one of the things we have to do as parents is build a relationship with our children, because when we have some type of working relationship with our children, we communicate better. So therefore they come to us not just after they do something that's probably inappropriate, but before they do something that's inappropriate. And that's what the programs offer when we start talking about healthy relationships. Just kind of touch on that for a minute, Ms. Simmons, in terms of relationships and what that actually means for not just man and woman, boy and girl, but just families as a whole.
Well, with in the Roseland community in which we offer the program, we notice that a lot of our students, a lot of our kids have a problem with social conventions. And so when you talk about communication skills, that entails things such as conflict resolution, how to talk to one another, how to build a relationship, how to learn how to love. So with that being said, if we learn and give them those skills, how do I do that? If you've never been taught, then you don't know how. So in terms of social conventions, there's a lack thereof when it comes to exposure. So if I have not been exposed on how to communicate, or I have not been exposed to anything but the Roseland community, I can't effectively communicate with anyone, which is why a lot of our students get caught up in the bullying. They get caught up in the suspensions and not really knowing how to talk to adults or how to receive things from adults and things of that nature.
Absolutely. And this is why we say this all the time: parental involvement parental involvement. What does that mean? Because this is the thing that we run into so many problems with our parents, and not just our young parents, but our older parents as well.
Absolutely.
If we do not ourselves know how to communicate, how do we then teach our children how to communicate? And even though we have programs such as this one, where we're implemented in Chicago public schools, we still have to get those parents to come out and become more involved, because as a parent, I need to know how to communicate with that child as opposed to cussing them out. Now, if they don't apply, let it fly. But if this is you, then you are who I'm talking to. Instead of just always, now I see it all the time where we cuss our kids out because we don't really know how to communicate with them. Either it's a behavior that they're offering that we don't know how to change that behavior, so we threaten to kill them, we threaten to beat them, or we cuss them out. And this behavior, I mean, you can say what you want to say, but we know how often we see this type of behavior. So that's why we're talking about what's important in terms of communication, and why we have programs like this to talk about relationships and healthy relationships between not just man and woman, boy and girl, but family and communication skills and what that should look like. And that's why we continuously talk about programs that we offer in parental involvement, because parents, I promise you, and this is with most women. Now, women, I don't get offended, but this is with most women when we start talking about discipline. And how discipline works is, one, they'll tell a kid not to do something, and the kid will continue to behavior. They'll tell a kid the next time not to do something, and the kid will tend to continue to behavior. About the third or fourth time they tell that kid not to do something, they cussing them out, screaming at them, and they'll knock them across the room when they should have dealt with that the first time, when they still had some calmness about them, or when they still were able to effectively communicate, you know. And that's one of the things we have to talk about when we start talking about communications. And we get into discipline, which is, you know, multiple stages when you start talking about what needs to happen, and if you don't do this, what are the consequences, and how the consequences escalate, and that sort of thing. So we can definitely communicate, but that's so important because when we have programs like what Ms. Simmons' office, and we start talking about prevention programs in the school, again, without order, disorder, rules. So that kind of stuff comes early in the game, you know. So parents, just a little bit, just a little something that we might want to look at.
Well, you know, Mr. Chair, you talk about parent involvement, and so one of the things I want to touch on the curriculum and what it is I do, or me and my colleagues do when we go into the school, is it is highly preferred that we use evidence-based research as we go in there and we conduct workshops and activities and things of that nature. But I have learned in my experience that those evidence-based curriculums, are great. However, you have to intertwine what's going on currently. And when I say currently, I mean around us in the world and the globe. And you also have to involve what's going on right there in their community.
Absolutely.
That's how you actively engage them, and it becomes a reality to them. So as we go in there and we teach them and we're talking and we're coming up with all of these great activities, one of the things that we like to do as a team is to teach them how to go home and deliver this message in the home.
Absolutely.
Because again, it's very hard and difficult to get the parents to come out and get involved. And I'm in the schools all the time, and I have much love for the children they have for me, and sometimes I've never even met their parents. But you know, they'll come see me at Southside Help Center, or they'll come see one of my colleagues that sometimes come and helps with the workshops and things of that nature, and we've never met anybody in the home. But one thing we try to do is go in there and say, hey, so now how can you deliver what we've taught you to somebody else, or how can you teach this to your friends? What would you do in this situation? So I think that's a great way to you know, involve the parents and get them. Some parents will listen, but Mr. Chair, we all know that some parents won't. So.
And parents, don't get mad if this is you. If it is, we just want you to get more involved in the programs that we're offering, because with you, they become that more effective. So don't get mad if we're talking about you. Just come and be a part of the programs that we're offering so that we can be more effective. And that's all we're saying. Caller, you're on the air. Yes, you're in the air, caller.
Hello?
Yes.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good.
This is a question that I'm concerned about. A friend of mine, he's a single father, and he's in a situation right now that his daughter is actually being verbally bullied at school, right? So he approached the classmates' parents to, do some resolution, try to just rectify the situation. And they see no progress of this. So his daughter's like at the point she sees nothing happening with this because she's still being verbally bullied.
Mm-hmm.
And now she's at the point of like wanting to defend herself, like with a knife or a brick.
Mm-hmm.
How do we actually dissect that before it gets any further if the parent of the other party cannot be an adult in this situation?
Would you like to attack this, or would you for me to?
One of the things that we have to understand too is levels. And one of the things we rarely do is go to the next level. The one thing we have to find out, and I promise you, I was just talking about this with some of my colleagues today, a situation I had just like this where my son was being bullied in school, and I had went to the school and I had this documented, and there was no resolution to the problem, and it got to a point where it overflowed and it became a volatile situation, and my son was forced to defend himself, and they suspended him for like 10 days, and this kid was on the honor roll. And I talked about what I did as a resolution was I looked at the different levels, because I went to the school the first time and nothing was done. I went back again, and the next time I started writing letters. And this is what I always tell them. My level of education, I can't even begin to say that it was my idea or it was me who wrote the letter. I got me somebody who knew how to write. And I sat down with them and I explained the situation to them. And what we did was we sent that letter first to the principal of the school. Then we CC'd the letter. We CC'd the letter to the superintendent of the school, to the assistant superintendent of school, to the PTA. I sent it to everybody that I thought I could to make sure that they were aware of this situation so that it's not stopping right here. Sometimes stuff stop here, and that's why I talk about levels. When your child, and everybody's entitled to have a safe and healthy environment in which to learn.
Absolutely.
When that doesn't happen, as parents, we got to go to the next level. And what is that next level? Sometimes we have to go directly to the principal and let them and make them aware and set up a meeting with the principal so that you can have a parent-teacher conference and let them know what's going on with your child. If that's not good enough, take it to the PTA, parent-teacher and parents, let them know what's going on. Take it to the next level, send it to the superintendent, because your child is entitled to an education, a safe education. And sometimes we just need to go to that next level and that next level and not stop here, because like you said, sometimes these situations get out of hand and become extremely volatile, you know, because we will protect our children at all costs. But let's look at those different levels that we can go to, and then go to them. And if it's not something that you can do, like I say, one of the things Mrs. Smith taught me early on, she said, Mr. Cherry, I surround myself with people who can do what I can't. So when I couldn't, I found somebody who could, and I had them to write a letter. I gave them the body of the letter and what needed to go in there, and we sent that letter off, and I promise you, the next day I got responses not only from the PTA, but I got responses from the superintendent office, because it's important that we stem these situations before they get out of hand. So that's my suggestion to you, is definitely look at the different levels that a situation like this can go to. And before anything happens, go to those levels, you know, let them know that there's a problem here and it can potentially get out of hand if it's not rectified, and go to every level you need to protect your child before it gets to the violent part of protecting your child, because we know there's always repercussions to those type of situations. So that's my suggestion, Ms. Simmons, if you want to take
You know, and I agree with everything that you have said, Mr. Chair. You definitely have to hit the administration. When you see no justice, you keep going and you keep going and you keep going. But one of the things that concerns me that you stated is that now mentally it's bothering the young lady. And so what I would suggest to add on is that we absolutely go and see our guidance counselor and get something going on, some one-on-one mentoring or some one-on-one counseling, so that she understands that it's not her fault. It's not her fault. And her father needs to show her that he's working towards getting this resolved. You know, when it gets to the point where the child wants to hurt him or herself, or they feel like everybody's against them, that's an issue, because we have a lot of suicide attempts now with children, and people don't realize that this is real.
Absolutely.
You know, and so that's one of the things that I also offer when going into the schools. Outside of just going in there and doing workshops and doing activities, I also build a rapport with each of my students, and I offer one-on-one counseling, because I am a professional licensed Illinois counselor. So that's one of the things. And if you know they don't have anybody coming into the school that can offer that, They also have social workers as well as school guidance counselors. That's what they are there for. You know, sometimes we have to demand what we want. It's just like when we go to the doctor and you say, hey doctor, this is what's wrong with me, this is what I feel, and they say, you know, well, we don't see that. Well, I want you to do further tests.
That's right.
Because I'm feeling ill and I think something is wrong with me. Same thing with the school, okay? He has to go to that administration and let them know, this is what's going on with my child. It has affected, you know, her mentally, and it could affect her academically, and it has affected her physically. What are we going to do about it?
Absolutely. And we start talking about conflict resolution. That's a word that we throw out. But again, this is what you're doing now. So we really thank you and appreciate you calling and at least getting some suggestions. And this is what we call conflict resolution. And we're teaching it to the young people in school, and we're showing them how to make some better decisions when peer pressure is upon them. And as parents, I promise you, we need conflict resolution skills as well, because you got to think, one of our solution to most things is we're going to deal with it aggressively and most time violently. And those are the things that we have to, one, teach our kids something different, and two, as parents, because they're going to continue to need us, we cannot put ourselves in those situations where we can either be taken, as a concerned parent, where we can be taken from that situation because of the results of some actions that we've taken. So conflict resolution works on so many different levels, and I promise you that writing those letters get so much better responses. And they talk about documentations, emails. Like I said, write the letter and email it to all of those people and CC it. And if you cannot get somebody who's qualified, and if you don't think that you know anybody that's qualified, we start talking about help and help centers. You know, there's always somebody who can either refer you in the right direction or somebody who's willing to help, because one of the things that we do is we are passionate about saving our children. Because we, again, by us being in the school system, or us doing violence prevention, us doing mentoring, us doing after school programs, we see a lot of different things with the young people. One of the things that we did yesterday, or they did yesterday, I say we because I was just as consumed with the process as they were, is they showed the Scared Straight video, and I was very, very, I was taken by the level of engagement with the youth. They were completely consumed by this process, and I thought that that was really, really cool. So I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And by that time, I was the same consumed, and my consumption came with watching them and seeing their reactions to this particular process. So I'm like, wow, this is a good thing. They were very, very engaged, and it's rare that you see that kind of engagement. So again, we are passionate about saving our children. We are passionate about violence. We are passionate about conflict resolution, and I say this all the time. Parental involvement is vital. Come to the center, man. If you can't get any resolutions, come to the center and rap with it. Like I say, I got some stuff that I saved. My kids have been out of school now for about, not that long, but they have been out of school for about 4 or 5 years, but I still got that stuff on backup. So please just you know, call, come see, and take a look, and so you'll know what the next level is, because I promise you the next level is not going to be to get physical or to you know turn that situation volatile. So man, we appreciate you calling in, and hopefully some of the information that we've given you will help you in your endeavors with that. But again, our number is 773-445-5445. You can call us there at our main number, and again, ask the question, because we've been doing not only prevention and HIV prevention, but we've been doing violence prevention. We've been doing after school programs for youth. We've been doing conflict resolution. We've been doing housing for HIV positive clients. We've been doing this stuff for like 25 years. Next, or let me say 24 3/3. Next year's our 25th anniversary. So we do know a few things. So please come by the center. And hopefully you'll be able to get that situation rectified. If you don't have anybody, you can contact us, and maybe we can point you in the right direction, because we do provide referrals as well. Okay. The other thing is barriers. One of the things we wanted to talk about is some of the barriers that you may be coming against, because it ain't easy getting into school talking about anything. So there's always barriers that we come across. And let's talk a little bit about the barriers you might be experiencing.
When it comes to administration, I do understand that there is pressure put on administration to make sure that their students know how to read, and make sure that they know how to function mathematically and science, so on and so forth. But I still do believe that this type of information that they necessarily don't have time to give is necessary in the schools.
Absolutely.
I get administration that even though they're under the same pressure as maybe the school down the street from them, they find time to let us in the school and, give a period so that we can teach these things to the students. And so there's not a lot of, sometimes I don't want to say this, but support as it pertains to administration sometimes. But we still in the Roseland community have those schools that they understand that in their building and with their culture, this program is needed in their school. And I would like to say that, it's needed in every school, and that's why we're here.
Absolutely.
That's why we're here. That's why we're out in the schools and we're doing this program, and it's for free.
Yeah,
it's for free. It is at no cost. We can work during the day as well as after school hours. So, that is the pushback. But again, I do understand the pressure that is put on the administration, and just wish that we could get a little bit more support as it pertains to coming in and doing the work that we do.
Right. And that comes again from parental involvement, parents. And I used to always tell my children's teacher, I always say, help me to help you. So absolutely. When I couldn't get it did, then I knew that there were programs in place that could help to get it did. So that's important when parents go into the school or go to the PTA meetings and let them know this is something that I would like to have happen in the school. Because parents, we understand we must work in order to support our families. We understand that we have to sleep in order to work to support our families. So we know that there's a small window that we actually have to actually work with our children on any level. So 9 times out of 10, what people don't often see is the school does spend more time with our children than we actually have time to. And that's no fault of your own. We must support our families, and that's the thing that we cannot blame ourselves for, parents. And I always talk about is not the quantity, but the quality of the time that's spent. That's what's important. Again, let me say that again. It's not the quantity, but the quality, because there's never going to be enough time. When I talk about trying to get 8 hours worth of sleep, you got to go to work for 8 hours. In a 24-hour period, you only got 8 to work with. Then when you start talking about having to eat, when you start talking about doing some homework, when you start talking about kids wanting to play, that window closes. So now you may only have 4 hours that you really physically have to work with your kids outside of the weekend. So in that amount of time, what you need to do is look at the quality. So in that hour that I may have a day, and this is what I say, give yourself an hour a day that you have to really kick it with your children. And one of the things that I used to, and I always say that, I've been saying it for years, when I used to do this work with Illinois Public Action, which was a community lobbying group, we used to go and they knock on their doors and it was dinner time, and they didn't want to have nothing to do with us. And I used to always wonder what's so important about dinner. And I learned early on that is one of the best quality time periods. So we, as most of us, and if it don't apply, let it fly, but as African Americans, most of the time when dinner time comes, we either fix our children's plate and put them at the table, we fix our plate, we go to the television, or we go to the bedroom. Well, this is an opportunity that we sit down at the table with our children and talk about what went on in your day, talk about what went on in my day, and this gives us an opportunity to have some quality time. It may not be but an hour, 45 minutes, but when you look at the grand scheme of things, that's a lot of time. When you look at per day, per week, per month, how much time you really actually have to spend with your children. So take advantage of that. The other time that is well identified is homework time. Take that opportunity, man, to share with your children. One, because there's a learning thing going on, a learning curve or a process. And it may not be you teaching them as much as them teaching you, because the stuff that they're doing, you may not have a clue. So allow them to teach you, but there's a bonding process that takes place there. And we have to look at where we get that quality of time at, be it doing homework, be it dinner, and those type of areas, because it's not a lot of time that we have to deal with our children. So help us to help you, man. So it's important that the parents let the schools know what it is that they want in terms of programs like what we have here. And those are some of the barriers that you guys encounter is a lack of parental involvement, and then the administration at the school not allowing us to come in and provide these type of services. And again, these are evidence-based. These programs have been proven, so allow these programs to happen. So go to your local school council and say, look, I want Ms. Simmons and the Southside Health Center to come in with these programs that they're offering, and they do work. They do work. So please do allow them in terms of barrier Ms. Simmons, if there's anything else you want to touch on these programs, please do, because this is your time, you know.
Well, the last, when we talk about barriers, I also like to hit on the students as well. I mean, this is not the easiest job, you know, but it's rewarding. When you go in, the students are really excited. They're excited to see you, for one, because it's for them, they feel it's a free period, but they're really learning.
That's right.
You know, and then you have those students that may say, you know, why should I listen to you? Who are you to tell me that my norm is not normal? Who are you to tell me that I am not being exposed? You know, one of the things that, you know, I don't go in, or me and my team, we don't go in, is, you know, saying this is a decision that I would make and so should you. This is the decision that I should have made and so should you. No. The point of all of this, and ultimately what we want them to do, is make better decisions. Okay? Go in there. We give you the information the best way we know how. And when you're informed, when you are informed, you can then make a sound decision.
Absolutely.
And that's our ultimate goal. You know, and I understand that sometimes, as Mr. Sherry has stated, you need to listen to the things that they are saying, because sometimes they make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
They make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you got to know how to connect the two, what you know and what they know. So how can we make this work? Because you can't just go to anybody and say, you know, this is the life I lived, and so this is how you should do it, when they live a certain life every day. And I had to realize that and understand that as I have experienced my work with students. But ultimately, with this program, is for them to make better decisions.
Absolutely.
That is our goal. That is all we want to come in to do. And if you are interested in Southside Help Center coming in and teaching preventive classes, we're available. Again, Mrs. Sherry, you can contact us at 773-445-5445.
Absolutely. And again, I say this all the time, and I think repetition is very important, not only for our young people, but for our old people. And again, we have to expose our kids to as many different situations that we think they may encounter. And because the thing about exposure is peer pressure, again, can tear down 15, 16, 17, 18 years of hard work. So as parents, we try our best to give our kids the best guidance that we have. And peer pressure can tear that down in a nanosecond, I promise you. So one of the things with these type of programs is we expose them to situations that they may come across. And a lot of times, just like with us, if we've seen this before, we can make a better decision on how we want to approach it or how we want to attack it. And that's what these programs offer. Provide them with a situation that they may encounter, and how will they address this situation. And I promise you, they make better decisions. They make better decisions. We make better decisions as parents. So please, get them exposed to as much as possible, and that's all these programs offer. Southside Help Center has mentoring programs. The mentoring programs are phenomenal, and the only thing, again, we're trying to do is expose them to situations that they may encounter and what would be the best decision to make. And a lot of times, when they don't have to make a snap decision, because it's the first time they've seen it, and they've seen this before, I promise you, they make a better decision. They say, oh man, I've been here before. Here's a better decision to make than this. And that's what they do. Children are like sponges. They are eager to learn. So when you put them in front of something or you expose them to something new, they suck it up. So I promise you, you are not doing any harm to your children when you expose them to something new and different. So please, please, please expose your children to as much as you can, and programs like what the Southside Help Center has to offer. So we don't have much time, but we truly, truly appreciate everyone tuning in. If you have any questions about what we're talking about, you got about 2 minutes. You can give us a call, hit the station. Our number here is 312-738-1060, and we'll do our best to answer it, because we're talking about prevention. We're talking about in the school programs. We have Ms. Tonda Simmons here, who is not only a prevention specialist, she does many things. You don't want to put them in a box, but prevention is really a wide variety of different things, and that's why we say programs, we talk about relationships, which is one of the things you guys talk about. What are the other two really quick again?
Self-esteem and communication skills.
Self-esteem and communications. We say self-esteem and self-worth because I promise you, one without the other doesn't work. And most of the time they don't know that they don't have this until you show them what it is, and they say, oh, that's what they're talking about. And then they make better decisions about themselves. So it's important that they talk about what is self-esteem and what is self-worth. Just a little bit about that, Ms. Simmons.
Self-esteem, actually, when you talk about self-esteem, I keep going back to the caller, because she's having a problem with verbal abuse. Again, if we can work on her self-esteem, a lot of those things she can handle assertively. I mean, everybody's had situations in where they were bullied as a child. Some able to get through it, some not, and that's where self-esteem plays a part. Self-esteem ties into value. The student, and sometimes adults need to know, I am of value. I am of value, and that's where self-esteem comes from. It looks like we have a call on this.
Self-esteem and self-worth. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
I'm calling because I actually just started volunteer with the mentoring program. I'm working with teenage girls, and the attitudes are are so different, and they just seem like a different sort of child, like just their dispositions and the way they talk to you and expect you to speak to them. I've never seen children like these, so I was really hoping that either of you could give me some insight or just some tips on how I can better relate to these young ladies.
Absolutely.
So again, when I talked about, approaching the students, whether male or female, you definitely don't want to approach them with the attitude of, what I'm telling you is correct. What I'm telling you is absolute, and absolute is a strong word. What I'm telling you is absolutely, positively right, because they will not be receptive of what you're saying. You have to go with the attitude of, mentoring. I'm trying to show you something. I'm trying to expose you to something. But hey, it's up to you to make the decision that you're going to make. You have to kind of put the responsibility back on them. When you put the responsibility back on them, they're more likely to listen to what it is you have to say. But and that's not to say that that's your attitude with your students. It's just that I even had to learn that, that's the approach that you take with them, because again, their norm is not your norm. A lot of times we want to revert back to when we were kids, or how our mothers or grandparents or what have you raised us. But again, you have to connect to this world now and say, this is their world, this is how I live every day. You may have went home every day and had warm dinner after class. That's not my world, so I really don't know how to relate to you on that level. So again, it takes a lot of patience, because I also help to run a mentoring program. It takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of observing, knowing the student for who they are, what level you can push them at and what level you cannot, because you're dealing with 30 different personalities. So again, I feel that approach, it works for me and my team.
One of the experiences I had, we would go camping. We went camping every year for about 9 years, and one year my uncle, we asked him to come and go camping with us, and he said yes he would, which he was an older gentleman. And when we got out there, we had took, it was like probably 20 kids, 20 guys, and they immediately lost their mind, because he lost his mind with them. And one of the things he said was, man, y'all got to, and one of his things was he was aggressive. I said, look, this is what you got to do. First, as a mentor, you have to understand what it is you're doing and who it is you're doing it with. That just means this. We took 20 kids out of their natural and normal environment and put them in something totally different and totally new. Well, how do you think they're going to react? The same thing happens when you get exposed to them being something totally different and something new. They're going to react the same way. So I told them, look, just take a step back. Allow them, to express themselves. Allow some of that energy to go. And then when that happens, then you can kind of come in. And that's what happens when you do your observation of the kids that you're actually dealing with. Because so many of them are dealing with so many different situations at home. And what you bring in is totally different than what they're accustomed to in terms of parenting, in terms of guidance, in terms of mentoring. So mentorship goes across the board a long way, because as mentors, we act as fathers, uncles, mothers. We act as all of those things. But you got to look at the people you're servicing. When I say to people, just what their exposure has been prior to you. And that's why mentoring is not an easy task. No. Everybody can't do it. You really need to see if this is something for you, because it's really, really, really taking a lot of different personalities of a lot of different kids who you don't know in the door what their exposure is and why they're behaving a particular way that they are. So that's one of the things you want to look at. And when you're able to do that, then you can kind of give some guidance in some different directions. But hang in there, because we need mentors like you. We need willing souls. So hang in there and give yourself a chance. And I promise you, it's going to work out for you. Caller, we have a call.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, I just wanted to say, speaking about the kids, they believe all kinds of crazy myths in the junior high where I teach. I just want the children out there to know, you can't get AIDS from a toilet seat.
Yes, absolutely. And one of the things he's talking about is how you cannot get HIV through casual contact. But I tell you, that's going to be something for our next show. So we truly like to thank everyone for calling in. We'd like to thank Ms. Simmons.
We teach HIV prevention.
Absolutely. HIV prevention not only in school. That's right.
Of that nature.
That's right. Doing the mentoring programs, the after school programs, and also in the school. So again, we truly would like to thank everyone for tuning in. We'd like to thank Ms. Simmons for coming out and being a part of the program. I've been trying to get here forever, so thank you again, Ms. Simmons. We'd like to thank Ms. Mitchell for handling those phones. We'd like to thank you for tuning in.
Thank you.
Again, we'd like to thank everyone. Until we see you again, we bid you peace.